Test 1 2 3.
All right. We are going to call the meeting to order, our very first ever study session for the Board of Supervisors. And I think that today, given all the changes, it is going to be as awkward as a middle school dance. So just please bear with us as we go through lots of adjustments and shifting and trying to make it work. So we'll start out with roll call.
Supervisor Cano. Here, present. Supervisor Christie.
Here.
Supervisor Hines.
Present.
Supervisor Scott.
Here.
Chair Allen.
Here.
Let the record show all board members are present.
Okay. The second and third item on the study session agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and the Land Acknowledgement Statement. We have an item on the regular meeting agenda to waive those permanently for the study session, not for the regular meeting. They will be on the regular meeting agenda. So we'll consider that at that meeting. So I will motion. Do we need to vote on this? So I'm going to waive the pledge and the land acknowledgement for this particular meeting, but then, like I said, it'll be formalized in the regular agenda. All right. Do we have agenda adjustments?
Chair Allen, board members, not for the study session.
My understanding is that we are going to go into executive session first. And well, if family and friends are here, then let's go for it. All right, then we will start out with a recognition. This is for the recognition of the retirement of Stephen King, a permit regulatory compliance officer with Regional Wastewater Reclamation Department, for 26 years of service.
So it's my honor and privilege. People can hear me for some reason. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Jackson Jenkins. I'm the director of the Pima County Wastewater Department, and I get the honor of acknowledging Mr. Steve King for an illustrious 26 and probably closer to a half years. And there's a couple things I thought would be really important for people to know about Steve. I mean, it's been a great time. He's been a wonderful asset to our team. But 26 and a half years back in the early days, he works in the industrial pretreatment area and in our compliance and regulatory affairs office. And he was instrumental. He was probably the driving force back in the day when, we had to regulate, what goes into the sewer. And of course, we don't want bad things going into the sewer. Think about that. Interesting. But there are things that we have to regulate from industry and commercial activities and whatnot. And so Steve and his team, by the way, we have a number of wastewater people here. I don't know if they're here to congratulate him or make sure he goes, but nonetheless, in the early days, we had a group of like sewer cops, and we would go and penalize people in industry for things that they did and didn't do right or didn't do well. And with Steve's leadership, he turned it more into an educational, we were supportive, we were industry friendly, and we wanted to educate them on what the rules of the sewer were. And so I'm going to say that was Steve's doing for the most part. And then even more in recent times, everybody's heard that four-letter acronym PFAS. We had a moratorium in the state on our biosolids, part of the process and wastewater, and we do land apply our biosolids. It's an agriculture fertilizer supplement that's used throughout this region. And for a while, because PFAS came in and there were so many unknowns about PFAS, that Steve and his team did a lot of the research and evaluation to show that it was still safe to use land application of biosolids for fertilizer. Worked with the U of A, many other stakeholders. And so those are two milestones in many, but I would just have to say thank you very much, Steve, for your 26 and a half years of public service and making a big difference in our department. And with that, I'll turn it over to Max DeSante just in case he has anything else he would like to say. Anything, Max?
Well, first, congrats, Steve. Thank you. It feels funny being up here with significantly fewer than 26 years of county service to congratulate you on your 26, but incredible accomplishment. You know, as Jackson mentioned briefly, Steve started in pre-treatment, went over to work on biosolids within the treatment side of our department, and then 4 years ago came back to pre-treatment once the pre-treatment manager position opened up. And just thank you for providing that leadership at that time. It was really instrumental. Obviously, you have some staff here that appreciate the guidance that you're able to give, and the seniority and leadership and just knowledge of our department and our industry and our business. So thank you. It's been great. We will definitely miss you. Good luck on your next gig. So thanks.
Come on over here, Steve.
Well, I wish I had something profound to say to everyone, but it's been almost half my life with Pima County, which is kind of incredible. My daughter was born in 2001. I'd already been with the county for a couple of years. I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've gone through 4 different directors. And we were talking about this earlier, and not just because you said some nice things about me right now. Jackson is probably the best director that we had. George was probably the strong, like a bull in a china shop kind of guy. But it's been great. I've been with wastewater my entire career, and it's very family oriented. I feel like, which is I feel like why some of the staff came out today. I just thank you very much for the recognition, and like you said, I wish I had something more instrumental in sticking to leave you with, but I don't.
Let us do the obligatory plaque here. That means you're going to have to start riding a bike, Steve.
I have a bike. It's in the garage.
All right, pose for the camera. Come on up here.
Item number 5 is a recognition of the retirement of Sherry Prochaska, business systems analyst with information technology for the last 21 years.
Good afternoon. So this is Sherry. Just because you're not able to be here today, I just want to recognize the wonderful accomplishments that Sherry has given in her 21 years of service to the county. Started with IT in June of 2023 as a business systems analysis, but again, over 20 plus years in Pima County. Those of you who had over 20 plus years, thank you, and thank you for your years of service. Sherry, thank you for all your wonderful work with ITD, particularly managing the monthly office hours. That was a great kind of accomplishment that I know with Director Baca, trying to make sure we had opportunities for directors to come in and share some of those concerns and learn together, help with some of our knowledge base and collaboration, with our communications office. And then most importantly, led communications for our telephone upgrade systems, which was an important major shift in our county. So Sherry, thank you for all the work you've done here in the county. I'm sorry you can't be here, but we want to at least give you this acknowledgement. Thank you very much.
All right, now we are going to break for executive session. There are two executive session items. One is from item 6, and then there is one on the addendum for the study session. We are, make the motion to break for executive session.
So moved.
Seconded by Supervisor Kano. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We are, oh, hello, back in session. Gavel on away. So for addendum study session, item number 6 was for information only. Addendum, the one addendum item for the study session that was also executive session, that was also for information only. We are going to hop quickly. We're going to hop over 7. Oops, looks like my numbering is a little funky. We are going to move to item number 8. This is an update on county initiatives to address homelessness and public safety, and it looks like we have our esteemed colleagues from the health department here with us. Dr. Cullen.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair Allen, members of the board, administrator. We're going to talk with you about heat. So it's the name of the session is a little misleading. I'm not going to spend that much time on those two topics explicitly. And could we have the slides? Oh my goodness. No, they're there. Okay, thank you. So we know a lot about heat. You guys have these slides in front of you. Our real focus today is really to talk with you about what the county has been doing from last year through this year and what our plans are for this year. So I'm not going to go over these details, but you can see up there that in 2025, the earliest 100-degree weather day was April 11th, and this month it was March 19th. So as we recognize, we did have some cooling after that, but we're now starting into the warm days of summer, as they're called. So we're going to talk about historic heat trends. Next slide. And then the next slide after that. So from in 2025, the heat season reviewed from May 1st to September 30th. And you now know that we've extended our heat season starting in April, going into October. But last year it was from May 1st to September 30th. And you can see here the emergency department and urgent care visits that were seen. We did see a 13% increase in our heat-related visits. Remember, those are visits that are categorized by the provider that sees the individual as related to heat. The demographic breakdown you can see here. And the housing status is 9.1% of unhoused, which are disproportionate to the population size. Next slide. So now we do have some slides to share with you that are related, that are what we were called epi charts. So you can see in here emergency room and urgent care visits related to the temperature. The bottom yellow bar charts are the temperature, and you can see, or are the heat. Is that right? The heat-related visits, and you can see how they correlate with the temperature. Red is the maximum, blue is the minimum temperature. So as the temperature goes up, our heat-related illnesses increase. That's when you see there be a heat warning. As you know, or may be aware, Maricopa has had some heat advisories already starting this season. Next slide is the heat mortality glossary. This is important just to understand that prior to 2023, there is concern that heat-related deaths may not have been classified appropriately. So Dr. Hess has actually helped inform this for the country. Heat-related death is any cause of death where heat was involved. Heat caused is caused by the heat. And this is important as we go forward, because you'll see that heat-caused deaths have decreased, but overall heat-related deaths have not, because they're the summation of heat caused and heat contributed. So the next slide gives you a sense of that. More than half of heat-caused deaths occurred outdoors. So despite the belief that they're all outdoors, a significant number do occur indoors. You can see the data related to male, non-Hispanic, high-risk age groups. We became aware last year of this real increase in heat-related deaths in our older population. Not surprising, but in further review, there's really a belief that a lot of this is that individuals do not have live by themselves, and appropriate people are not checking on them. So you'll see that in some of our planning as we go forward for how we want to mitigate them. The heat season trends on the next slide. This is a 3-year process, 23 to 25. Remember in 23, the death changed. What I would call your attention to is on the left bar chart, the blue at the bottom are the heat-caused deaths. So what you can see is that those are decreasing. However, overall, the deaths have decreased, but not necessarily a significant decrease. Deaths related to chronic disease have increased. Deaths related to hypertension, 150%. This categorization is done by the Office of the Medical Examiner, not by us, and it's reflected in the death certificates. So we work closely with Dr. Hess to evaluate the impact of that. Some of the heat-contributed deaths related to chronic disease are due to a medication and heat interaction, and you'll see later that we've been working really closely to make sure that individuals that are on certain medications that may put them at risk for hyperthermia are aware of it. The one thing that I think is significant is the annual unhoused heat-related deaths, which is on the bottom right, have decreased. This, I believe, is somewhat related to the work that we are doing in the community, the access to services for this population, as well as the ongoing outreach that is done both by the multiple jurisdictions as well as the county. Next slide. The heat season notable patterns, remember this was for 25, is that substance use and chronic disease contributed to heat-related deaths. 20% of indoor deaths occurred in mobile or manufactured homes. We've actually, big shout out to the county assessor who has been helping us look at mobile homes that are registered within the county. We've done some preliminary evaluation of that for this year. In 25, I do not think we had the insight to recognize that the mobile or manufactured homes were so potentially putting people at risk. And 90% of indoor deaths involve non-functioning or turned off air conditioning. You have to take this with a grain of salt. The reality is what that means is that someone reported that the air conditioner was either turned off or unplugged. It's hard to know what happened exactly at the time of death, because these are usually bodies that are discovered not within an hour, but within a 24-hour period. So let's now go to our action plan. And just a reminder, the heat season report, which you guys received last week, I think, perhaps a week before that, has all the detail in it, many, many more charts. And now we're going to talk about the heat season plan, because I think what's really most important is what are we doing this year. So based on what our findings were over the last 3 years, and let me just step back a second. The health department was assigned a responsibility for heat. Starting in 21, we did very little there. Starting in 22, we really started doing more. So 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. We're really in our 5th year of being active as the facilitator and the collaborative partner for the heat response throughout the region. And you see that in the first goal. The first goal is really for us to lead and coordinate a unified, coordinated heat response system. This concept is really related to a unified command structure, which really flows from emergency management, similar to what we have done when we've had other situations where we needed to ensure that there was coordination. Multiple partners come to the table, they work closely with us, and we work to ensure that they know each other, understand what the data is, and can work towards the goal that we share together, which is to protect public health and really protect the residents. Part of our heat response goals flows from that, which is strengthening community awareness, understanding. We work closely with comms. We have a budget that we have pulled together explicitly to look at heat. You guys have all seen Beat the Heat. You've probably seen bus wraps. You've probably seen other information that has been out there. Obviously, our real goal is to reduce illness, emergency system strain. We do that by ensuring that in the field there are ways for people to get resources to prevent them from having to go to the emergency room. Our libraries, once again, serve as a really critical place for the community, and they are scattered throughout the county, as you know. And then advanced long-term climate adaptation. That is obviously consistent with the work that Sarah Davis and other people have done on climate action now in the Climate Action Plan. heat priorities and activities are here. I'm not going to read all them. There's a few things that I think are important. One is we are using our community health workers as resource navigation in the field. They are in the field working in different places, providing outreach and service availability as well as referral patterns at both the heat respite centers as well as other areas where they are. You'll see them at most events that occur. Our vulnerability map, I will show you after this. We are working on ensuring that we have transportation to and from cooling centers. That's a new initiative that we started last year. It's funded with a small amount of money, but we're hoping that that in and of itself, as well as the continuation of the free buses for this summer at least, ensure that people are able to get to and from cooling centers. Now, the caveat to that is the rural areas, because there's really not transportation available in the rural areas. What you don't see here is ongoing work with both tribes, the Thalnatham and the Pasquayaki tribes. And so that's a place where there's a desert, literally a desert, in terms of ensuring that there can be transportation for people that live in some of the rural areas. We'll talk a little bit about that in that we have a cooltainer. So the next slide, we have 45 cooling centers registered. We expect to have that number increase, 90% opened May 4th. The caveat to that, remember, is if you go back to that earlier slide, we hit 100 in March. I think we started anticipating we were going to hit 100 about a week before that. We did not have any cooling centers open specifically at that time, but our emergency management team worked and got a few open that would take people over that weekend. But that gives us a sense of that we need to be more agile as this comes up, because I believe we're going to see consistently increased temperatures happening in those earlier months, and yet it may not require us to be open from March 13th to May 4th. So we do have the rest of our centers opening up the first week in June. You can see the library serves a lot of these cooling spaces. We do have a new cooltainer. We've been bugging ADHS. You'll recall the cooltainer we got in Ajo was a gift, in quotes, from ADHS. They drove it down here, and Jan, you were at the ribbon cutting when we did that. We do have another new cooltainer because we've been somewhat persistent in our ask that we should get another one. So just so you know, the city of Tucson has two, Thalnatham has two, we had one. Now we have a new cooltainer coming in. It's going into the Cuna Los Niños Park, which is a highly at-risk community based on the data that we were able to look at, and there's not a respite center near there. Both cooltainers will be staffed with our community health workers as we go forward. And once again, we're working to expand the accessibility. There's some work that's been done in other communities, particularly Boston, where what they've done with their respite centers is use that as an entree into care. So they do blood pressure screening, they have clinicians on site. We don't have that right now. There's lots of great ideas that we might be able to incorporate as we go forward. The next slide is the extreme heat vulnerability mapping, and you'll see that we call, this is for the county. Once again, we do not share data on tribal lands, so that's why you see that being blue. But we do call out here, you can look at the EMS calls, the mobile homes and parks, and the heat vulnerability map. So this map is really for us. It is available on the website, but its linkage is really to help guide us in terms of where we should be doing services at this current time. And the next slide is the EPI surveillance update. This is the HRI related visits at the current time. And you can see the bottom MMWR weeks. These are not the weeks that you know, but they are the weeks that are determined by CDC. It's a Sunday to Saturday week. And you can see the spikes that we had earlier in the year. And then the black is what we saw in 25. So obviously when the heat goes up, more people go to the hospital. Understandable. They're seeking refuge. Sometimes people just go to the hospital so that they can sit in the hospital in a cool place. And with that, I'm going to stop and we can take questions. I do want to introduce the team that's here, if that's okay with you. I should have done that initially. I didn't do this yesterday either with Chair Allen. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves really quick, Betsy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Betsy Kamara. I am one of the program managers with the Office of Heat Relief and Response.
And we have 3 other people.
Yes, so we have Cheyenne McChesney, who is one of our epidemiologists with the health department. And then we have Amanda Anderson, who is the division manager for the Emergency Mitigation and Preparedness Division, who is kind of the overarching for the Office of Heat. And then we have Nate Young, who is the other program manager with the Office of Heat Relief and Response. Thank you.
Supervisor Scott.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Dr. Cullen, thank you for that presentation. Thank you also for appearing on our podcast to talk about our responses to heat.
Supervisor Scott, did that go out yet?
It did.
Oh, I missed it.
That's okay. I'll send
I'll have
it
to
you.
check it.
I'll send it to you. But I wanted to ask, you've done a terrific job of outlining who our key players are within the county. And you also made reference to cool tainers that the city of Tucson and the Tohono O'odham Nation have. Who are our outside the county partners, and how are we working with them to coordinate our efforts?
Yeah, so we work with partners all over the county. So we have about 45 partners that we're like actively engaged with, some of them being the University of Arizona, a lot of researchers through there doing heat work. And then we work with the city of Tucson. We work with a lot of nonprofit partners, so a lot of those do run our cooling centers. And then various partners, like we work with a lot of the emergency managers within the county, but also external to the county to understand what they're doing. So we work very closely with the Maricopa County Department of Health, Public Health with their work that they're doing with heat. We're all kind of collaborating, learning from each other how we're responding to heat.
Do you want to talk a little bit about IRC and Red Cross?
Yeah, and Red Cross, exactly. So we do a lot of outreach with the Red Cross, specifically our mobile home outreach, and a lot with unhoused encampment outreach we've done last year. And so we worked with them, the map specifically, the vulnerability map, to identify areas that we see increased rates historically over time, and especially our mobile home populations. And we were doing door-to-door canvassing. So they helped mobilize volunteers. They did a lot of outreach with us, and then we were able to supply them with the kits to actually communicate and educate about the different vulnerabilities we're seeing in the community. So Red Cross is a huge partner, and then City of Tucson does a lot with unhoused outreach as well.
And Betsy, do you want to just talk briefly about how we're trying to extend the hours?
Yes. So one of the initiatives we actually just released, the request for quote last week, is to extend hours. So a big request that we've seen is that cooling centers are not open late enough in the evenings. It's still hot by 5, 6, 7 p.m. when most places have closed their doors. And so we've gotten some funding to extend the hours. So we're offering up certain funding to certain partners who apply into this program so they can extend their hours, so we can keep them open on the weekends, which many centers are not open as well because they're running on normal business hours. So we're asking them if they can open up with this additional funding to open that. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for the thorough report as well as the plan for '06. I'm a huge fan of the heat vulnerability mapping. In fact, I think one of my staff just sent it to me to take a look at sort of what it looks like today. I guess the thing, District 3. So I'm curious about how the urban, doing a heat plan in an urban area is different than in rural areas, with the access to resources and services and partners is just very different. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about some of the partnerships in places like Ajo and Arivaca, 3 Points, and kind of who, a little bit more of just how you're thinking about it. I don't need you to get granular, but just how you're thinking about those differently. And as you acknowledge, right, transportation in the rural areas, getting to cooling centers is an issue in and of itself. So maybe just a little more on that, please.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there is a difference in the approach that we're doing in these rural areas and how we're working with them. And so we're really relying on the partners. We rely on them a lot within the city as well, but it's really kind of focusing on who's doing the work and how can we support them doing that work. So can we open up? So in Ajo specifically, in Green Valley and Arivaca, we have the library systems that are open during the week. So they're opening up and we're giving them the supplies so they can do it. They might not be able to buy their own water and heat relief resources. So we're getting those out to them so they can distribute to people. In Ajo specifically, we have the cooltainer that's open on the weekends, so we can fill that gap as well over the weekends. And we know that they're hotter than the rest of the county. So this also fills that gap to make sure those residents are safe. And then in Green Valley, Saurita, Amado, we have a CHW out there that's doing active work. And so they're able to communicate resources available and to get them to the cooling centers that are available. We do see decreased visitor numbers just because there's just smaller population, so we keep that into account. But we are trying to make sure that we have at least one cooling center available to people within those areas. It may or may not be walkable, which again comes into the transportation issue, but we do have at least something accessible to people so they can access a cooling space.
And I think as we looked at getting one cooltainer, we actually applied for more, but we only got one from the state this year. I think depending upon what happens this year, at least in Ajo, that, in my opinion, was successful. So what does success look for a cooltainer in a rural area? If 4 or 6 people come, I think that that's a success story versus if we're at Valencia, we might expect that there be 100 people a day. We do know that there are other areas in the county that don't have adequate cooling options available to them, and we'll be looking for them over the next few years of how to mitigate that. A cooling center is actually, as you guys remember, it's what they use to build the border. What are they called? Container. It's a container, and which is retrofitted, and it's actually a fairly nice. They're run on solar, so and they have a backup generator, so they're really effective. I want to give a call out to Parks and Recs because they've been really helpful with us. And as you know, Chair Allen, we're moving the one in Ajo so that it can be more central so that people can walk to it. We put it at Parks, we put it at the swimming pool last year, which worked but wasn't great. So we're hopeful that we'll get additional help there. The one other thing I do want to call out is the health centers, the health systems, TMC, Banner, El Rio, Marana, Unified Community Health Center have always been really great partners for us as we go look at this. And Desert Sunita in Ajo, we're out there actually next week with a mobile van. They've set up a meet and greet with Desert Sunita to make sure that we are not replacing services that another owner or another NGO or another CBO is doing. And that's true in town. Our goal is to really be the convener, but a lot of the work is really these public health heroes that are out in the community that we're doing this before we started coordinating. And what you see, I think, is the ability for everyone to leverage each other's resources because now there is a coordinated, unified structure that ensures that people can know what others are doing. Every week, these guys run a committee, a meeting, a virtual meeting where people report, they report what their needs are, they report what they're seeing, they report their numbers. So there's a way that we can then track the number of visitors that we're seeing at the different respite centers.
And if I may, I'm also curious so a number of the objectives and activities in the plan were about kind of partnerships with some of the medical with the centers, and whether it was kind of medication education about taking which drugs get exacerbated by high heat, and other kind of learning. So I guess I'm just specifically interested in knowing whether you're already in relationships with like Desert Sunita about some of that education with community members, but Desert Sunita and then is it UCHC, in Amato, Arivaca, 3 Points, and the other places that there's rural community clinics.
Yeah, we are, and I'll take the medications and heat specific area. So we've developed with the university and with the state resource guides specifically about medications and heat. I will say the idea came from Pima County, and everybody else grabbed onto it, which I think was successful. So we have information that we have pushed out through the community health centers, through Banner, through TMC, through what we call our provider hub, directly to providers. But in addition, we have specific relationships with the federally qualified health centers. However, even if you add up all the FQHCs, and I don't want to minimize, that's about 10% of the population at one point may have a touch point with an FQHC. So we have 90% of the population that isn't being seen there, many of which may or may not be getting care at all other than the ER or the urgent care centers. So that's where we have a big push to make sure that there's appropriate education happening. Our real goal, however, is to protect people from going to the ED, to keep them out of the emergency room by making sure they can be in the respite center. Last year, we worked closely with MRCSA, the Medical Reserve Corps of Southern Arizona, and they helped staff many of our sites in the libraries. It turned out that wasn't that effective. The vast majority of individuals that were visiting the libraries for respite did not have a need that could be met by the MRCSA, but that's another tool that's available to us. You know, we have the very first MRCSA in the country. There's about 500 clinically licensed individuals, some physicians, some nurses, some pharmacists, blah, 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 that work there. So.
Two last things. We might be finding that this new venue just makes me a chatty Kathy. So maybe. So if we'll just say that in working with the manufactured home, mobile home parks in District 3, just let us know and we'd love to help out with the door knocking and the outreach. And then my last question is about the county's heat ordinance. And I would actually love a report on kind of how the implementation of that is going. It is my understanding that community organizations, groups like Jobs with Justice and other labor unions around the state are advocating for and have been advocating for statewide regulation that sort of creates stronger enforcement. And I just want to ensure that what we have done is, love to know how it is being implemented, and if there are things that we can do that can help strengthen it at the county level, then I'd love to just know more about that.
So go ahead.
Oh, here. Supervisor Christie.
I heard a number of areas that these heat centers are located. I didn't hear anything out in Reddington in that area. Anything? They're very remote. They have travel difficulties. You can cross 4 county lines within 2 miles. They have a very slow response due to distance with sheriff and UPS deliveries and medication deliveries and a lot of emergency issues, particularly when it's health related. Do you have any plans or any opportunities for the folks out there?
Supervisor Scott, we have been working with, I'm going to forget the individual that your group, your office put us in touch with. We don't at this point have any plans specifically for heat, but we will go back and look at that and see what option is available for that. Okay. And then Chair Allen, let me respond to that. I was privileged enough to be a member of the Arizona committee that developed recommendations for the governor and ADOSH, the Arizona Department of Occupational Safety and Health, to review. I was the public health representative for the state on that group. There were very specific recommendations that were developed. I will tell you, many of them were informed by what we did at Pima County, so I look kind of like I knew what I was doing because I had done so much work here. And then those recommendations did go to the governing body of ADOSH. They were recommended at that point to not be a regulation, but to be a recommendation. Obviously, there are many people that were on that committee, including labor, different businesses, small businesses, large businesses, other healthcare related people that felt that they should be enforceable. But at this point, I actually don't think the governor has made a decision. Ultimately, it will be her decision what to do with them. But those recommendations really mirror what we have in our ordinance that the Board of Supervisors passed. Because of that work, however, I think that there was a delay to see what would happen in terms of enforcement, whether the state would be able to take on that role. Remember, the way it's written is that individuals can report to us, and as of yesterday, there had been no complaints that we were able to determine that came specifically to, there's a line you can call or through just input to the county or to the health department. So I think there is additional work to be done based on what we've seen at the statewide level. As you know, the city of Phoenix, the city of Tucson, and Pima County are the jurisdictions and the county that have done ordinances specifically around heat. So, and I don't know if I want to defer to the administrator.
And Chair Allen, we'll get you an update and a report on what that explains all of the efforts that has been occurring. Thank you.
Oh. Supervisor Cano. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Allen. And Director Cullen, I want to also send District 5's appreciation for all your work on heat safety. Under the Ducey administration, I actually was the first state legislator to introduce heat safety standards and was proud when Governor Hobbs continued that protection from an executive position. I do want us to ensure that we are having compliance with the county's contractors. I have an outstanding request of administration and Mr. DeBonis about the number of jobs created by our contractors, and I know that that number is being worked on to figure out how we can ensure that we're tracking those numbers. But in that same realm with this report that the chair is requesting, ensuring that there are safety tenants into our contract language as well might be really important to make sure that that entire world, which is certainly one of its own with the amount of contractors we have, are paying attention to heat safety. Thank you.
Supervisor Scott.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Dr. Cullen, if I missed this in the presentation from either you or your team members, I apologize, but I know that a lot of our K-12 districts reach out to their families during the summer to address other needs that their families might be having. I'm wondering if some outreach to the K-12 districts in terms of enlisting them as partners in our heat awareness and heat prevention efforts would be advisable.
Supervisor Scott, thanks for that. As you know, we do run a school team and we have ongoing monthly meetings with the different districts and the parochial, public, and charter schools. We have not done that, and it's a great idea, so we'll take that back.
Thank you very much.
We actually, just to add on to that, we did have a communication today with some of the school staff to an education about heat safety so that they can pass it along, just because we know that the heat season is starting earlier, so it might not have been something they've dealt with in the past, but since at the end of their school year, they're having to kind of make these changes and make sure that school staff and like the athletics departments and band teachers and all these people doing outdoor activities are aware that this is a huge risk to kids and they need to do something to protect the kids. And so to give them kind of the opportunity to learn about heat safety and heat awareness and building in heat action planning to their programming. So we're working on that with them and giving them tools and resources to do that. But yes, I think reaching out to families and using that as an opportunity to connect to resources is a great idea.
Fantastic.
And during
Thank
the heat wave in March, we do work with Arizona Interscholastic Athletics, and we did push out guidance for what how to do practice in a safe way. We do push that out through our school teams there. So, but a few years ago, we did do more outreach to families, and there's probably a way for us, I think, to piggyback even on the lunch programs that are happening in the summer, right? So I think there's more opportunities, and we'll come back to you with those.
I appreciate that. And then referencing a comment that you very generously made when you appeared on our podcast, could you share with our colleagues the role that former County Administrator Huckleberry played in terms of expressing his belief that the county should play a leadership role in this area?
Supervisor Scott, thanks for that memory jogger, and I don't remember what I said. I apologize.
No, I asked you how we came to be this convener when it comes to dealing with heat awareness and heat emergency, and you made reference to Mr. Huckleberry saying, well, we should be doing that.
Yes, and I do recall that, and that was at a time, if some of you recall, when Shane Clark was here at OEM, and PCHD, Office of Emergency Management in the Health Department, were like, that is literally, metaphorically, a hot potato, and none of us really wanted to take it, and by default, I said, okay, we'll lead. So, yeah, that's how that came about.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Allen.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, well, thank you. Thank you both. Thank you all for the work and for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity to present. Thanks.
I think we will go next to Finance Director Cuaron. Yes. And this will be for agenda item number 9. This is our monthly financial update.
Administrator Lesher, Chair Allen, nice to see you. We have our financial update. It's a little dry, not to steal from Dr. Cullen's presentation there. The other slides pulled up. So much like my presentations the last few months, county is in a good financial position, much like we've been fortunate enough to be in the last few months. Our general fund revenues remained, continue to be exceeded the budget by 15.6 million. There's no change from last month's forecast, so this remained flat. Our expenditures continue to trend lower than budget by 10.7 million. This is an increase of just over 3 million from last month. So the departments continue to do a good job of monitoring their budgets month over month. That has led to a fund balance increase of 42.5 million. I'm going to break this down a little bit for you because 37.3 of that 42 was included in our the county administrator's recommended budget, which came out on April 17th. The other 2.1 million is an increase of our general fund reserve requirement over the current year's requirement of 92 million. That's a 2.1 million increase to 94.1, which leaves us this fiscal year with 3.1 million in available fund balance. Next slide, please. This slide here, and I didn't print the materials. I do apologize for that. I'll be better about that next month. This slide is just a visual representation of what I just explained here. The top bar is the fund balance. The middle bar is our revenues. Our transfers in is the third small bar. We have our general fund expenditures there at 10.7, and then our fund balance again at 42.5. Next slide. These charts really just track the progress of our revenues and our expenditures against our trend from last year. As you can see, we are right on trend and right as on the pattern that we've seen in FY25. Next slide. So our financial, this is the general fund reserve reconciliation. So you have that $134.5 million overall reserve. You reduce the FY 26-27 estimate, which is 94, again, that 94.1 that I mentioned at the top, less the 37.3 there that's included in the county administrator's recommended budget, leaves you an unrestricted fund balance of 3.1 million. Next slide. This is slide outlines our general fund contingency. The one addition there was the St. Luke's funding that the board authorized on March 24th. Currently, we have a balance of little over 383,000 in general fund contingency for the balance of the fiscal year. Next slide. Key dates, the budget, again, was delivered on April 17th, the recommended budget. Our next meeting on May 26th, we'll have the county administrator's recommended budget presentation along with the tentative budget adoption, which again just sets the ceiling for the budget. We will come back before you on June 23rd for final budget adoption. And then August the 11th will be the adoption of the tax levy. That, next slide, that concludes my prepared remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
I don't know if you could explain, one of the slides shows the transfers out. I wonder if you could explain a little bit of that item.
Chair Allen, you want to wait for the slide to be pulled back up?
It's like slide 3rd or so.
Yeah. So while it's pulling up, transfers out are transfers out of the general fund to other funds within the county. And so specifically, what's driving this $1 million are two projects, transfers out from the general fund, two CIP projects. One is in juvenile court for surveillance equipment, and the other is the clerk of the Superior Court. I believe they're doing some renovations to one of their floors. And so that's what this category encompasses. That's obviously not all that's in there. We have transfers out to debt service. So when we pay our debt service, we transfer out to the debt service fund. And so it's those types of expenditures that come out into those other special revenue funds and capital improvement funds.
Supervisor Connell?
Thank you, Chair Allen. Director, this isn't really the focus of your report, but I have a general inquiry. You mentioned expenditures and revenues coming in from the treasurer's office and the assessor's office. I'm sure you're aware that there continues to be some discussion about whose numbers are right. Is your department offering any kind of technical assistance or any kind of training to ensure that the board is receiving accurate numbers from both departments? Specifically the treasurer and the assessor?
Chair Allen, Supervisor Cano, early on in that process, we did meet with the treasurer's office to really understand what the NOPC process was. But to date, we have not yet provided specific training to each one of those departments. We're always available if they have questions or need guidance with respect to how they're processing those or handling those. But we do very much remain in the correspondence loop, in the communication loop, and are available as necessary to address questions that come up. I don't know if Administrator Lesher has any additional commentary.
May just add, Chair Allen and Supervisor Cano, there's a couple of issues, very specific issues that are being worked on in the treasurer's office right now that we do have staff from county departments working on. One is the IT needs, so that we're understanding and that we're sure that the request being made, we clarified what those costs are and are working closely with them. The other relates to the selection of a new bank and our banking, the company with which we do banking. Director Cuaron, Collins, Baca. We've got a variety of people working with them as well, so that we ensure that when there's interaction with all the other county departments, that we're fully informed on that. I will say that we do have some questions and concerns right now to make sure we're understanding the authority of the board and county administration related to functions in the treasurer's office and the assessor's office, and are working with the county attorney's office on that, but we'll be reporting back. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Lesher. My comments really to both the treasurer and the assessor is to use our finance experts as your allies throughout this process. When the board, who ultimately has the fiscal jurisdiction of the entire county as a jurisdiction, I just, when I see a roller coaster effect happening on revenue coming in or revenue coming out related to overpayments or under assessing a parcel, I don't know who to point fingers to other than to say we've got to work on this collaboratively and with one another. And in these financial reports, we ultimately as a board see the end result of all of those discussions, right? And so I just want to make sure that we're there. Related to something in the budget, an inquiry, Administrator Lesher and Director Quadone, that I'd like to see, about a quarter of all of our primary property tax goes to state cost shifts. And one of the largest items in that particular spreadsheet that was sent in the recommended budget is the Altex program. Is it Arizona Long-Term Care? I want to see the formula that we are required to comply with, and really just see kind of from a statewide perspective how other counties are paying into that and what the state's portion is. It is our fastest growing cost shift, and obviously with an elderly population, I'm sympathetic to the issue. But I think folks going into budget adoption need to recognize that out the door, a quarter of our assessment is from cost shifts. That is Phoenix telling Pima County what core services should be funded by county taxpayers, not the other way around.
How do we know that we have the money? Like, do you look at the bank statements? Excuse me, Chair Allen. I think I've asked this before, but I'm just picturing the disaster from Santa Cruz County. But are you seeing like account balances, or are you just getting a report from the treasurer? Which is, I'm casting no shade at anyone. I'm just don't want to misplace $39 million,
Chair Allen, Supervisor Hines, that's an interesting question. We do work closely with them, and we have cash flow forecasts for each one of our funds. So we're able to monitor those. We do, my office does do the bank reconciliations for each one of our accounts. So we are seeing, the bank reconciliations and making sure that the dollars that are coming in are accounted for, as well as the dollars that are going out. So we do that, and we do work in concert with the treasurer's office. So the short answer is yeah.
And if I may, Chair Allen, again, Supervisor Hines, you do receive a monthly report from the treasurer. Right. Thank you.
I have, if I may, just a broad question. I saw some comments recently from the executive office federally about potentially as one way to deal with the high gas costs of reducing the federal gas tax. And I know that there's, nothing on the table explicit that I've seen about that, but just generally in broad strokes, how could that potentially affect the county? And is that something that we need to monitor? And I maybe just need a little refresher around state gas tax versus federal gas tax, and which both come to us through HERF funds.
So, Chair Allen, that's a good question. I have seen recent articles that would indicate that the federal government is considering that. If they did do that at a high level, the state of Arizona would be impacted, and depending on the severity of the reduction, we could potentially see reductions in our HERF revenues as well. What that would be, I can't tell you right now. We can certainly bring back some analysis if the board would be interested in that on what I think the reduction was. I don't even want to hypothesize, but we could bring that information back.
And if I'm, and Chair Allen, I know that, I think Supervisor Christie and Supervisor Scott and Supervisor Hines, who have sat on the RTA PAG board, know the importance of our state transportation dollars and what those dollars are. And I believe the 18 cents or so hasn't been increased in the 90s. And so, but let us get you an update, I think would be appropriate on all transportation funding through gas tax, et cetera. Thank you.
Any further questions? Well, thank you very much, as always, for the monthly presentation, Director Guaron. We have one item left, which is item number 7. This is the Board of Supervisors representative updates on boards, committees, and commissions, and any other municipalities that we sit on. I can share that I sit on the Arizona Board of Counties Coalition as well as the Southern Arizona Education Council. The latter has not met. The former, however, the Arizona Board of Counties Coalition, we meet quarterly. We just had a meeting a couple weeks ago, discussed a little bit around some of the updates on FDI and some potential economic partnerships with several companies in Mexico. There was ongoing discussion about developing more positive narrative around the border and the economic engine that the border region is for our state. There was a confirmation from the State Department of Transportation of a project in Sonora that is paving the road up to, I forget the origin point, which town, but up to the Sasabe, Sonora. So that will increase traffic to the Sasabe port of entry. And then we had learned a lot from Cochise County Supervisor Gomez about some of the efforts there, including that they will be soon developing a Port of Authority board for the Douglas Agua Prieta port of entry, which will be the first ever. Those are my updates. Supervisor Scott.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Administrator Lesher, this came to mind when Chair Allen was talking about the Southern Arizona Education Council. Could you please share with the board what you shared with me that you heard from the Santa Cruz County Administrator about that body and the decision Santa Cruz County made?
Thank you, Chair Allen and Supervisor Scott. As you know, what was formerly the Metropolitan Education Commission changed its name to the Southern Arizona Education Commission, indicating to the board that it would be forming a new organization with Santa Cruz County and Pima County. Not long ago, we had an opportunity to visit Santa Cruz County. I was talking to the county administrator and found that Santa Cruz declined to become a partner in the organization. And so Santa Cruz County did not there are not two counties as part of the arrangement. I've asked staff to work with staff of what is now the SAEC and get us an update of a status of what their other contracts are, what's occurring, and encouraging them in the future to keep us updated on that sort of development. Thank you.
Any other reports? All right, well, hearing none, I believe we are adjourning our very first ever study session. So thank you all. We are adjourned and we will resume at 5 o'clock for our regular meeting. We do have to come back.